The Zelthri warship Eternal Dominion was the largest vessel ever built by any species in the known galaxy. It stretched across the darkness of space like a metal mountain, surrounded by 200 smaller ships that could each destroy a planet on their own. For 3,000 years, the Zelthri hegemony had conquered world after world, and they had never once been refused. When the Zelthri gave an order, species obeyed. That was simply how the universe worked. High Commander Vexorin stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion and looked at the blue and green planet below. Earth, the humans called it. Such a simple name for such a simple world. His analysts had studied this species for 200 years, watching them from hidden probes scattered throughout their solar system. The humans were primitive. They had only recently discovered space travel. They still fought wars among themselves over patches of dirt and differences in belief. They would be easy to conquer. Begin the broadcast, Vexorin commanded. His voice was cold and smooth, like ice sliding over metal. He had delivered this message to 400 worlds before this one. He knew it by heart. The communication officer activated the transmission array, and Vexorin's image appeared on every screen, every phone, every device on the planet below. Billions of humans looked up from their daily lives to see a tall, gray-skinned figure with 4 eyes and a mouth full of needle-sharp teeth. People of Earth. Vexorin began. I am High Commander Vexorin of the Zelthri hegemony. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. You have 24 hours to surrender your governments, your militaries, and your resources to hegemony control. If you comply, you will be permitted to live as a servant species under our protection. If you refuse, your planet will be cleansed of all life, and your world will be used for mining. You have 1 day. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. Vexorin clasped his 4 hands behind his back and waited. On most worlds, the surrender came within minutes. The more stubborn species sometimes took a few hours to accept the truth of their situation, but they always surrendered in the end. Always. 1 hour passed, then 2. The communication officer looked nervous. High Commander, he said, we have received no response from the human governments. Vexorin frowned. This was unusual. Perhaps their communication technology is more primitive than we thought. Send the message again. The message was sent again. Another hour passed. Still nothing. Scan their communications, Vexorin ordered. I want to know what they are saying to each other. The intelligence team worked quickly, tapping into Earth's global networks. What they found made no sense at all. High Commander, the lead analyst said, his voice confused. The humans are laughing. Laughing? Vexorin turned sharply. Explain. The analyst transferred his findings to the main screen. Across the planet, humans were sharing images and messages about the invasion, but they were not messages of fear or plans for resistance. They were jokes. Someone had drawn a picture of Vexorin wearing a party hat. Another had taken his image and added colorful sparkles around his face. A musician had taken the audio from his threat and turned it into a song with a fast beat that humans were dancing to. What is this? Vexorin demanded. It appears to be mockery. High Commander, in the United Nations building in New York, an emergency session of the Security Council was taking place. The meeting was supposed to be private, but someone had accidentally left the broadcast system connected to a public channel. Millions of people around the world were watching. The American representative was speaking. Look, I'm not saying we shouldn't take this seriously, but has anyone actually looked at their ships? They look like angry staplers. Laughter filled the room. The Russian representative leaned into his microphone. In Russia, we have a saying, if someone threatens you from very far away, they are either very strong or very stupid. These aliens have traveled across the galaxy to threaten us. I think we know which one they are. More laughter. The Chinese representative raised her hand. I would like to officially propose that we respond to this ultimatum with the traditional diplomatic message of our time. She held up her phone, showing a popular meme of a cat saying no. The room erupted in applause. Vexorin watched this display with growing confusion. In 3,000 years of conquest, he had seen fear. He had seen anger. He had seen desperate courage and pathetic begging. But he had never seen a species laugh at a Zelthri ultimatum. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. It was deeply, deeply unsettling. They must be in denial, he said, trying to convince himself. Their minds cannot accept the reality of their situation. They will understand soon enough. But deep in his chest, in the place where Zelthri felt doubt, something cold was beginning to form. High Commander, a junior analyst said nervously, I am detecting some unusual readings from Earth's satellites. What kind of readings? I do not know, sir. Our sensor rays are experiencing interference. We are losing visibility over large portions of the planet. Vexoran eyes widened. Interference? From primitive human technology? It should not be possible, sir. But it is happening. On Earth, the laughter continued. But behind the jokes and the memes, something else was happening. Something the Zelthri could not see. In a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Sarah Mitchell was looking at a wall of screens showing the alien fleet in perfect detail. Her satellite network, the one the Zelthri did not know about, was working exactly as designed. How long until we're ready? She asked. 18 hours for full deployment, her aide replied. 20 if we want the Mars fleet in position. Mitchell nodded slowly. Tell everyone to keep making jokes. The longer they think we're idiots, the better. She picked up a secure phone that connected to every major military power on Earth. For the first time in human history, there were no arguments on the line, no disagreements, no old grudges getting in the way. Every nation, every leader, every soldier understood what was at stake. This is Mitchell, she said. Operation Punchline is a go. Let's give our guests a show they'll never forget. Back on the Eternal Dominion, the hours continued to pass. The Zelthri crew was becoming restless. They had never waited this long for a surrender before. Some of them began whispering among themselves, wondering if something was wrong. Vexoran refused to show any sign of concern. He stood on the bridge like a statue, watching the planet below, waiting for the inevitable moment when the humans would realize their situation and beg for mercy. But the begging did not come. Instead, more jokes arrived. Someone on Earth had created a video game where players could throw fruit at cartoon versions of Zelthri soldiers. It had been downloaded 50 million times in 3 hours. A famous human musician had released a song called Space Invaders Got No Game. That was already the most popular song on the planet. Children were wearing masks that looked like Zelthri faces and chasing each other around playgrounds, pretending to be scary aliens. High Commander, the communication officer said carefully, we have intercepted a message from the human military. Finally, Vexoran said with relief, they are ready to negotiate. Put it on screen. The message appeared. It was a single image of a human hand making a gesture with the middle finger extended. What does this symbol mean? Vexoran asked. The cultural analyst checked his database. His face went pale. It is an insult, High Commander. A very serious one. Vexoran felt his blood turn cold with rage. No species had ever insulted the hegemony. No species had ever dared. Fine, he said through clenched teeth. If they wish to die laughing, we will grant them that wish. Prepare the cleansing protocol. When the 24 hours are complete, we will burn their world to ash. But even as he gave the order, the cold feeling in his chest was growing stronger. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. The humans were not acting like a primitive species facing extinction. They were acting like something else entirely. They were acting like they were winning. A young Zelthri officer approached Vexoran carefully. High Commander, I have completed my analysis of Earth's history. There is something you should know. What is it? The humans have a long history of warfare. They have fought many conflicts among themselves. Very brutal conflicts. That is common among primitive species. Yes, High Commander. But there is something unusual about the human wars. In their last major global conflict, they developed weapons capable of destroying entire cities with a single explosion. They called them nuclear weapons. Vexoran shrugged. Many species develop such weapons. Yes, sir. But the humans developed these weapons not to fight an external enemy. They developed them to use against each other. And then, for decades afterward, they lived with thousands of these weapons pointed at their own population centers, knowing that at any moment, they could all die. The bridge fell silent. They lived like that for generations, High Commander, under constant threat of total destruction. And they did not go mad. They did not collapse. They just kept living, kept working, kept building. Vexorin said nothing. I believe, the young officer continued quietly, that a species capable of living like that, a species that learned to laugh while staring into the face of their own extinction, may not respond to our threats the way we expect. Vexorin wanted to dismiss this analysis. He wanted to call the young off. 10 hours had passed since the Zelthri ultimatum, and High Commander Vexorin was beginning to lose his patience. He had conquered worlds that took days to pacify. He had broken the spirits of species that fought for generations. But he had never, in all his long years of war, faced an enemy that simply refused to take him seriously. The humans were still making jokes. If anything, the jokes were getting worse. High Commander, the intelligence officer reported, we have intercepted over 300 million individual communications, mocking our fleet in the last hour alone. 300 million? Vexorin repeated. That is impossible. How can they produce so much content so quickly? It appears that mockery is something humans are very good at, sir. They have entire networks dedicated to sharing humorous content. They call them social media platforms. Right now, we are what they call trending. Vexorin looked at the samples his team had collected. Someone had edited his original threat video so that his words were replaced with a song about bodily functions. Another video showed his face pasted onto a dancing animal. A third was just a loop of his mouth opening and closing while a human voice said blah blah blah, over and over again. This is not warfare, Vexorin said slowly. This is. What is this? I believe the humans call it trolling, sir. On Earth, the laughter was everywhere. In coffee shops and classrooms, in factories and farms. People were sharing the latest jokes about the alien invaders. A comedian in London had done a whole routine pretending to be a Zelthri, trying to understand human customs. A group of students in Tokyo had dressed up as aliens and performed a dance that had been viewed 2 billion times. In Nigeria, a musician had sampled Vexorin's voice into a hit song that was now being played at parties. Around the world, but behind the laughter, something else was happening. Something the Zelthri sensors could not detect. In a conference room in Geneva, the leaders of Earth's major powers were meeting in person for the first time in decades. There were no arguments. There were no threats. There were no old grudges poisoning the conversation. Instead, there was something that had never existed before in human history: complete and total unity. The Mars fleet is in position, the American general reported. All 2,000 ships are ready to move on your command. The moon defense grid is fully operational, the Chinese admiral added. We can take out their entire fleet from here if needed. The asteroid belt stations are standing by, the Russian commander said. We have enough firepower to glass their home world 10 times over. The Secretary General of the United Nations, a small woman from Bangladesh named Fatima Rahman, looked around the table. So we are all in agreement? We wait until our 18, then we reveal our true capabilities? Every head nodded. And we do not fire first, Rahman continued. We give them every chance to walk away. That is who we are. That is who we choose to be. The Russian commander smiled grimly. We will give them the chance. But if they attack, we will destroy them so completely that their grandchildren's grandchildren will be afraid of. Humans agreed, said every voice in the room on the Eternal Dominion. Vexorin was trying to restore order among his increasingly nervous crew. The sensor interference from Earth was getting worse. Large sections of the planet were now completely invisible to their scans. And the jokes, the endless jokes, were beginning to affect morale. I heard that the humans have a weapon that turns enemies into food. A young soldier whispered to his companion. That is ridiculous, the companion replied. But he did not sound confident. Then why are they not afraid of us? Every species we have ever conquered was afraid. Why are these primitives laughing? Vexorin heard the whispers and felt his anger grow. He needed to do something. He needed to show the humans that the hegemony was not to be mocked. Prepare a probe ship, he commanded. We will land on their planet and demonstrate our power directly. Destroy a city, a small one, that will teach them to take us seriously. The probe ship launched from the Eternal Dominion and began its descent toward Earth. Vexoran watched with satisfaction as it entered the atmosphere. In minutes, the humans would see the true power of the hegemony. They would stop laughing then. The probe ship was halfway to its target when something unexpected happened. A small object rose from the ground below. It was tiny, barely visible on the sensors. It moved fast, faster than anything the Zelthri had seen from human technology. And it was heading directly for the probe ship. "What is that?" the sensor officer asked. Before anyone could answer, the tiny object struck the probe ship. There was a flash of light, and then the probe ship was gone. Just gone. Nothing left but scattered debris falling toward the ocean below. "What happened?" Vexoran demanded. "What hit us?" The intelligence team worked frantically. Finally, one of them looked up with a face that had gone completely pale. "Sir, we traced the object to its point of origin. It was launched by a human child." "A child?" "Yes, sir. A human juvenile, approximately 14 years old. He appears to have modified a recreational flying device, the humans call it a drone, with some kind of energy weapon. He broadcast the entire attack on a public channel. He has gained 50 million followers in the last hour." Vexoran could not speak. A child, a single human child, had destroyed a Zelthri probe ship with a toy. "The human is giving interviews now, sir. He says he learned how to build the weapon from something called YouTube tutorials. He says anyone could do it." The bridge was silent. Every Zelthri officer was thinking the same thing. If a child could destroy their ships with a homemade weapon, what could the adults do? On Earth, the teenager's name was Marcus Chen, and he was becoming the most famous person on the planet. His face was on every screen. His story was in every headline. And he was still laughing. "I just pointed my drone at the big shiny thing and pressed the button," he told an interviewer. "It wasn't that hard. My little sister could probably do it." His little sister, watching from behind the camera, nodded enthusiastically. The Zelthri intercepted this broadcast. They also intercepted the millions of messages that followed, many of them from other humans claiming they could build similar weapons. Some of them were clearly joking. Some of them were not. The Zelthri could not tell which was which. Vexoran called an emergency meeting of his senior commanders. Their faces showed the same confusion and fear that he felt in his own hearts. "We have underestimated these creatures," he admitted. "Their technology is more advanced than our report suggested. Perhaps we should withdraw." One commander suggested carefully. "Gather more intelligence before proceeding." "Withdraw?" Vexoran snapped. "The hegemony does not withdraw. We have never withdrawn from a conquest. We cannot start now." "Then what do we do, High Commander? Our sensors are blind. A child destroyed our probe ship, and the humans are still laughing at us." Vexoran had no answer. For the first time in his career, he had no answer. On Earth, the laughter continued. But now there was an edge to it. The humans knew they had drawn first blood. They knew the game had changed, and they were ready for what came next. In the bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Mitchell watched Marcus Chen's interview with a smile on her face. The boy had not been part of the plan, but his actions had worked out perfectly. The Zelthri now knew that Earth could hurt them, but they still did not know how badly. "Status report," she requested. "All defense systems are fully operational. The Mars fleet is in final position. The moon grid is targeting the enemy flagship. We are ready to begin the reveal at R18 as planned." "Good," Mitchell said. "And what about our invitation?" "Prepared and ready to send, General," Mitchell nodded. The next phase of Operation Punchline was about to begin. In 8 hours, the Zelthri would learn the truth. They would learn that they had picked a fight with the wrong species. And then, if they were smart, they would learn something even more important. They would learn that humans, for all their jokes and their memes and their strange sense of humor, were also capable of mercy. Back on the Eternal Dominion, Vexoran received a report that made his blood freeze. "High Commander, our analysts have finished studying human history in more detail. The results are disturbing, more disturbing than what we have already seen. Much more, sir. The humans have fought to global conflicts that they call world wars. In these wars, they killed tens of millions of their own kind. They developed weapons capable of destroying entire cities. They used those weapons on each other, And then, after all of that death and destruction, they rebuilt their world and became even stronger than before. Vexoran listened in silence. They have a phrase, sir. They say what does not kill them makes them stronger. Our cultural analysts believe this is not just a saying. They believe it is the fundamental truth of human existence. Humans grow stronger through suffering. They become more dangerous through hardship. Every enemy that has ever tried to destroy them has only made them more powerful. That is impossible, Vexoran said, but his voice was weak. There is more, sir. In their history, they have produced individuals who willingly sacrifice their own lives to save others. Not just soldiers in battle, but ordinary citizens. Mothers and fathers who died protecting their children. Strangers who died protecting other strangers. They have a concept they call heroism, and it appears to be extremely common among their species. Vexoran thought about the HFY-18 arrived like a sunrise after a long and terrible night. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, every Zelthree officer stood at attention, their eyes fixed on the planet below. They had been waiting for hours since the human invitation had arrived. They had spent those hours trying to repair their sensor rays, trying to understand what was happening, trying to prepare for whatever the humans had planned. They were not prepared. High Commander Vexoran stood at the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back in the pose of absolute confidence that he had perfected over 3 centuries of command. But inside, his hearts were beating faster than they had in years. Something was coming. He could feel it in his bones. Any changes in human activity? He asked, "No, sir. Their communications are quiet. The jokes have stopped." That was the most frightening part. For 18 hours, the humans had been laughing and mocking and making jokes. Now, suddenly, they were silent. The whole planet had gone quiet at once, as if waiting for something. "Sir," the sensor officer said, his voice trembling, "I am detecting movement on the surface of the moon." Vexoran turned to the viewing screen. The moon hung in space beside Earth, gray and dead and covered with craters. The hegemony had scanned it dozens of times. There was nothing there, just rock and dust and ancient emptiness. But now something was changing. The surface of the moon was splitting open. Vexoran watched in disbelief as huge sections of the lunar surface slid apart, revealing what lay beneath. Lights appeared in the darkness. Massive structures rose from under the regolith. Towers and domes and weapons platforms that should not exist, could not exist, emerging from the dead rock like flowers blooming in fast motion. "What is that?" Someone whispered. "A defense grid," the tactical officer answered, his voice hollow. "A planetary defense grid." Hidden under the surface, the grid was enormous. It stretched across a quarter of the moon's visible face, and every part of it was turning toward the Zelthree fleet. "That is impossible," Vexoran said. "We have been watching Earth for 200 years. We would have seen them building this, unless they wanted us to see only what they chose to show us." "Sir," before Vexoran could respond, another alert sounded. "Movement on Mars." "Sir." The screen shifted to show the red planet in the distance. And there, rising from the rusty deserts of Mars, was something even more terrifying than the moon base. Ships, human ships, thousands of them. They were not the primitive rockets that the hegemony had observed in their surveillance. They were warships, real warships, with hulls of dark metal and weapons arrays that glowed with barely contained power. They rose from hidden bases across the Martian surface, filling the sky like a swarm of insects, all of them pointing toward the Zelthree fleet. "How many ships?" Vexoran demanded. "Approximately 2,000, sir." "No, wait, more are launching. 2,200, 2,500. They are still coming. 2,500 ships." The hegemony had brought to 100. They were outnumbered more than 10 to 1, sir. "I am detecting additional signatures in the asteroid belt." The screen shifted again. Among the tumbling rocks between Mars and Jupiter, more lights were appearing. Weapons platforms, defense stations, mining facilities that doubled as fortresses. "How long have they had all this?" Vexoran asked. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, weak, confused. "Decades, sir. Perhaps longer. They must have found our surveillance probes and shown us only what they wanted us to see. They have been playing a role this entire time. A role. The primitives, the fools, The laughing idiots who made jokes about the mighty hegemony. It had all been an act. Every clumsy space program, every primitive satellite, every stumbling step into the cosmos. All of it designed to make the Zelthri think Earth was weak. And the Zelthri had believed it. They had walked right into the trap. Sir, we are receiving a transmission from Earth. Put it through. The screen flickered and a human face appeared. She was small and dark-skinned, with gray hair and calm eyes. She wore no uniform, no symbols of rank. She looked like someone's grandmother. "Greetings, High Commander," she said. "My name is Fathima Rahman. I am the Secretary General of the United Nations, the governing body of Earth. I hope you have enjoyed our little presentation." Vexoran found his voice. "This is a trick. Holographic projections. Fake signals designed to confuse our sensors." Rahman smiled. It was a gentle smile, almost kind. "You are welcome to scan our forces more closely if you wish. We have lowered our jamming fields temporarily so you can see everything clearly. Please, take your time. We have 6 hours remaining on your ultimatum. There's no rush." The sensor officer worked frantically at his console. After a long moment, he looked up with eyes full of fear. "The ships are real, sir. All of them. The weapons are real. Everything is real." Rahman's smile did not waver. "As I said. Now, High Commander, I believe we need to have a conversation about the future. Because as you can see, you are no longer in a position to make demands." Vexoran wanted to rage. He wanted to order an attack, to go down fighting, to show these humans that the hegemony would not be intimidated. But he was not a fool. He could read tactical displays. He could count ships. He knew that if he attacked now, his entire fleet would be destroyed in minutes. "What do you want?" he asked through clenched teeth. "What?" Rahman tilted her head slightly. "That is an interesting question. We could destroy your fleet right now. We have the power to do so. We have had the power to do so for the last 18 hours. But we chose not to. Do you want to know why?" Vexoran said nothing. "Because we are tired of war," Rahman continued. "Humans have fought many wars, High Commander. We have killed millions of our own kind in conflicts that, looking back, seem pointless and wasteful. We have learned, slowly and painfully, that violence rarely solves problems. It just creates new ones." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We could destroy you. But then what? Your hegemony would send more ships. We would destroy those too. And then more would come, and more, until one of our species was extinct. Millions, perhaps billions, would die. Worlds would burn. And for what? Pride, territory, resources we could share if we simply learned to work together." "The hegemony does not share," Vexoran said. "No," Rahman agreed. "The hegemony takes. The hegemony conquers. The hegemony rules through fear. We know this. We have been watching you too, High Commander. For decades, we have intercepted your communications. We have studied your history. We know about the 400 worlds you have enslaved. We know about the resistance movements on those worlds. We know about the suffering your empire has caused." Vexoran felt cold. How much did they know? How much had they seen? "And yet," Rahman continued, "we are not interested in revenge. We are not interested in conquering your empire as you have conquered so many others. We are interested in something much more difficult. We are interested in peace." Peace. The word felt strange in Vexoran's mouth. "You want peace with the hegemony?" "We want peace with everyone, High Commander, even with those who came to destroy us. That is who we are. That is who we choose to be." The bridge was silent. Every Zelthri officer was staring at the screen, trying to understand what they were hearing. The humans had them at their mercy. They could wipe out the entire fleet with a single command. And instead of attacking, they were offering peace. It made no sense. It went against everything the Zelthri had ever known about conquest and power and survival. "You have 6 hours remaining on your ultimatum," Rahman said. "I suggest you use that time to think carefully about your options. You can try to attack us, and you will die. You can run back to your hegemony, and you will be executed for failure. Or you can stay and talk, and perhaps discover that there is another way to exist in this galaxy." She leaned forward slightly, and her eyes seemed to look directly into Vexoran's soul. "We are not like the species you have conquered before, High Commander. We do not break. We do not beg. We do not surrender. But we also do not hate. We are capable of forgiveness. We are capable of mercy. All we ask is that you give us a chance to show you what that means." The transmission ended. Raman's face disappeared, replaced by the tactical display showing Earth's vast and terrible defenses. Vexoran stood alone in the silence of the bridge. His officers looked at him, waiting for orders, waiting for guidance. But he had none to give. For 300 years, he had known exactly who he was. He was a conqueror. He was a destroyer. He was an instrument of hegemony power. He had never questioned his purpose, never doubted his mission, never imagined any other way to live. And now a small woman from a small planet had looked at him and offered him something he had never been offered before. A choice. High Commander, his second-in-command said carefully, "What are your orders?" Vexoran looked at Earth. He looked at the moon with its hidden defense grid. He looked at Mars with its fleet of warships. He looked at the tactical display that showed his 200s. The shuttle from Earth arrived at the Eternal Dominion exactly 1 hour after Vexoran agreed to talk. It was a small vessel, sleek and elegant, with a design that bore no resemblance to the clumsy rockets the Zelthri had observed in their surveillance. Watching it dock with his flagship, Vexoran felt another wave of shame wash over him. Everything he thought he knew about humanity had been wrong. The airlock opened, and a single human stepped onto the bridge of the Eternal Dominion. She was tall and slender, with silver-streaked black hair and eyes that seemed to look through everything they saw. She wore a simple gray suit with no weapons, no armor, no protection of any kind. She walked into the center of the most powerful warship in the hegemony, as if she were taking a stroll through a park. "High Commander Vexoran," she said, extending her hand in what Vexoran recognized as a human greeting gesture. "I am Ambassador Lin Chen. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Vexoran did not take her hand. "You came alone, unarmed. That is either very brave or very stupid." Chen smiled. "Perhaps both. Humans are often both at the same time. It is one of our more interesting qualities." She looked around the bridge with open curiosity, taking in the towering displays and the nervous Zelthri officers and the vast emptiness of space, visible through the observation windows. She did not seem impressed. She did not seem afraid. "You could kill me right now," she said casually. "One human, surrounded by hundreds of Zelthri warriors. It would be easy." "Yes," Vexoran agreed. "It would be, but you would not learn what I came here to tell you. And I think, High Commander, that you are very curious. I think you want to understand why we are not afraid. I think you want to know how we have been hiding our true strength for so long. And I think, perhaps, you want to know if there is a way out of this situation that does not end with your death." Vexoran's eyes narrowed. "You think you know what I want. I think I know what any intelligent being would want in your situation. You cannot defeat us. You cannot run. You cannot hide. Your only options are death or negotiation. And since you invited me aboard, I assume you prefer negotiation." The truth of her words burned like acid. Vexoran had spent his entire career giving orders and watching lesser beings obey. Now he was the one with no choices. The reversal was almost physically painful. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "Nothing you cannot afford to give," Chen replied. "Information, understanding, perhaps, in time, cooperation. But first, I want to tell you a story. A story about why we were not afraid of your ultimatum. A story about who the humans really are." She walked to the observation window and looked out at Earth, blue and green and beautiful in the darkness. 50 years ago, she began, "We discovered your surveillance probes. They were very sophisticated, but not sophisticated enough. Our scientists found them, studied them, and realized that we were being watched by an advanced alien civilization. You could have made contact," Vexoran said. "You could have revealed yourselves to the galaxy. We could have, but we chose not to. We studied your probe technology and learned about the hegemony. We intercepted your communications and discovered what happened to species. That caught your attention. 400 worlds conquered. Billions of beings enslaved, entire civilizations destroyed because they had something you wanted." Chen turned to face Vexoran directly. "We realized that if we revealed ourselves, you would come to conquer us. We were not ready to fight an interstellar empire. So we did what humans do best. We adapted, we hid. We pretended to be weaker than we were. And while you were watching our clumsy rockets and primitive satellites, we were building something else entirely, the moon base, the Mars fleet. Those are just the parts we let you see today. There is much more hidden throughout the solar system. We have had 50 years to prepare for this moment, High Commander. 50 years to build weapons and ships and defenses that you cannot even imagine. We are not defenseless primitives. We are a species that learned to fear the darkness of space, and then learned to conquer that fear by becoming something the darkness should fear. Vexorin felt a chill run through his body. If you are so powerful, why did you not attack us first? Why wait for us to come to you? Chen's expression softened slightly. Because we did not want war. We hoped, perhaps foolishly, that the hegemony would never find us. We hoped that we could hide forever and avoid the violence that your empire brings wherever it goes. But we also prepared for the worst. And now that the worst has come, we are ready to destroy us, ready to give you a choice. She stepped closer to Vexorin, and despite himself, he took a step back. The small human woman, unarmed and alone, was more frightening than any enemy he had ever faced. We could destroy your fleet right now, she said softly. We could kill every Zelthri in this system and send a message to your hegemony. That Earth is not to be touched. That is the easy path. That is the path your species would choose in our place. Yes, Vexorin admitted. It is, but we are not you. We have learned, through centuries of bloody history, that killing enemies only creates more enemies. We have learned that empires built on fear eventually collapse under the weight of their own cruelty. We have learned that the only true victory is one that does not require violence. You speak of weakness, Vexorin said. In the galaxy, mercy is weakness. In your galaxy, perhaps. But we intend to change that. Chen reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She activated it, and a holographic display appeared in the air between them. It showed a map of the galaxy, with 400 worlds highlighted in red. These are the planets your hegemony has conquered, she said. For the past 40 years, we have been in contact with resistance movements on many of these worlds. We have been supplying them with weapons, training, and most importantly, hope. They know that Earth exists. They know that we are preparing to challenge the hegemony, and they are ready to rise up when the time comes. Vexorin stared at the map in horror. 40 years. The humans had been undermining the hegemony for 40 years, and no one had noticed. No one had even suspected. Your empire is weaker than you know, Chen continued. Your conquered peoples are waiting for a chance to be free. Your military is stretched thin across 400 worlds. And now, your fleet is trapped in our system, with no way to escape. If your goal is to destroy the hegemony, why tell me this? Why give away your strategy? Because destruction is not our goal. Liberation is our goal. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to replace your empire with our own. We want to build something different, something better. Chen deactivated the holographic display and looked at Vexorin with something that might have been compassion. You have spent 300 years as a conqueror. You have destroyed worlds and enslaved billions. But I do not believe you are evil, High Commander. I believe you are a product of your culture, doing what you were taught to do. And I believe that, given a different choice, you might become something else. What choice are you offering me? Join us. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Every Zelthri on the bridge turned to stare at the human ambassador. Join you? Vexorin repeated. You want me to betray my empire? To become a traitor to everything I have ever known? I want you to become something new, something better. The hegemony will not last forever, High Commander. Empires built on cruelty never do. When it falls, the beings who work to bring it down peacefully will be remembered as heroes. The beings who ought to preserve it will be remembered as monsters. Chen stepped back toward the airlock. I am returning to Earth now. You have 4 hours remaining on your ultimatum. Use that time to think about who you want to be. When the ultimatum expires, you can attack us and die. You can run back to your hegemony and be executed for failure. Or you can join us and help build a better future for all the species of the galaxy. She paused at the airlock door. We are not asking you to believe in our cause right away. We are only asking you to give us a chance. Stay, talk, learn. See if what we offer is better than what you have always known. That is all we ask. And if I decide that your offer is worthless, if I decide that the hegemony way is the only way," Chen smiled sadly, "then we will destroy your fleet and mourn the waste of lives that could have been saved. We will not enjoy it. We will not celebrate it. We will simply do what we must to protect ourselves and the beings who depend on us. That is also who we are, High Commander. We are capable of great mercy, but we are also capable of terrible violence when mercy is refused." She stepped into the airlock. "For hours," she said. "Choose wisely." The airlock closed. The shuttle detached and began its journey back to Earth, and High Commander Vexorin stood alone on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, facing the most important decision of his very long life. Behind him, his officers whispered among themselves. Some wanted to attack, some wanted to run. Some, he could tell, were already considering the human offer. The certainty that had held his crew together for 300 years was crumbling like sand. In a strong wind, Vexorin looked at Earth. He thought about all the worlds he had conquered. He thought about all the beings he had killed or enslaved. He thought about the fear that had driven him for 3 centuries, the fear of being seen as weak, the fear of losing his power, the fear of becoming nothing. And then he thought about the human ambassador. Walking on the final hour of the ultimatum arrived like a funeral march. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, High Commander Vexorin stood at the observation window and watched Earth turn slowly in the darkness. Behind him, his 200 ships waited in formation, their weapons charged and ready, their crews tense with fear and anticipation. The clock showed 59 minutes remaining, then 58, then 50-7. Vex single quotes. Oran had spent the last 3 hours thinking. He had reviewed the tactical data over and over again. He had calculated the odds of survival if he attacked. He had calculated the odds of surviving a return to the hegemony and defeat. He had thought about Ambassador Chen's offer and tried to find the trap hidden within it. He could not find one. The humans were simply offering him a way out, a chance to become something other than a conqueror, a chance to live. And that, more than anything else, was what convinced him that the humans were telling the truth. No species in the galaxy would offer such a thing without reason. The hegemony certainly would not. If the positions were reversed, if the Zelthari held all the power and the humans were at their mercy, the outcome would be immediate and total destruction. That was the hegemony way. That was the only way Vexorin had ever known. But the humans were different. They had the power to destroy him, and they chose not to use it. They had every reason to hate him, and they offered mercy instead. They had nothing to gain from his survival, and they wanted him to live anyway. It made no sense by hegemony standards, but perhaps that was the point. Perhaps the humans were trying to show him that there were other standards, other ways of existing, other possibilities that the hegemony had never imagined. 45 minutes remained. Vexorin turned to face his bridge crew. They looked back at him with fear in their eyes. They were waiting for orders. They were waiting to be told what to do. For 3 centuries, Vexorin had always known what to do. Attack, conquer, destroy. Those were the only commands he had ever needed to give. But now, standing in the shadow of humanity's overwhelming power, he realized that those commands would lead only to death, open a channel to all ships in the fleet. He said that the communication officer complied. 200 Zelthari warships fell silent, waiting for their commander to speak. "This is High Commander Vexorin," he began. His voice was steady, but his hearts were pounding in his chest. "I have made a decision. It is not the decision that the hegemony would approve of. It is not the decision that our training and our culture and our history would lead us to make. But it is the right decision, perhaps the first right decision I have ever made." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "We cannot win this fight. The humans are too strong, too prepared, too well defended. If we attack, we will be destroyed. All of us. Every ship, every soldier, every life under my command. That is not a theory. That is not a possibility. That is a certainty." Silence from the fleet. No one argued. Everyone knew he was right. I could order the attack anyway. I could choose death over dishonor. That is what a hegemony commander is supposed to do. But I am no longer sure that I want to be a hegemony commander. I am no longer sure that the hegemony way is the right way. He thought about Ambassador Chen. He thought about her courage and her mercy and her strange, inexplicable hope. The humans have offered us a choice. We can die fighting an unwinnable battle. We can run home and be executed for failure. Or we can stay here and try to become something new, something different, something better. Vexoran took a deep breath. I am choosing to stay. I am choosing to accept the human offer. I am choosing to see if there is a way to exist in this galaxy that does not require conquest and cruelty and endless war. He looked at the tactical display showing his fleet. I will not order any of you to make the same choice. If you wish to attack, I will not stop you. If you wish to return to the hegemony, I will not stop you. But I am done with that life. I am done being a weapon for an empire that values nothing but power. He straightened his shoulders and lifted his head. My name is Vexoran. For 300 years, I was a destroyer of worlds. Today, I choose to become something else. Today, I choose to surrender myself to the mercy of humanity and hope that they mean what they say. He closed the channel. The bridge was silent. Every officer was staring at him with shock and confusion and something that might have been respect. Sir, his second-in-command said carefully, you have just committed treason. Yes, Vexoran agreed. I have. The hegemony will send assassins. They will hunt you to the ends of the galaxy. They will never stop. Then I will have to find allies who can protect me from them. Vexoran smiled grimly. Fortunately, I know a species that seems very good at protection. The communication officer looked up from his console. Sir, we are receiving responses from the fleet. Half of them are. They are requesting to join you, sir. They are asking to surrender with you. Half the fleet. 100 ships, thousands of Zelthri soldiers, choosing treason over death. Vexoran felt something loosen in his chest. He was not alone. He was not the only one who was tired of the endless war. And the other half? They are powering up their engines, sir. They appear to be preparing to leave the system. Let them go. Tell them that they carry a message for the hegemony. Tell them to say that Earth is not to be touched. Tell them to say that Vexoran has joined the humans, and anyone who wishes to follow him is welcome. The officer nodded and transmitted the message. On the tactical display, 100 ships began moving away from the fleet, heading toward the edge of the solar system and the long journey back to hegemony space. 30 minutes remained on the ultimatum. Vex, single quotes, Iran opened a channel to Earth. Ambassador. Chen's face appeared on the screen, calm and patient. I accept your offer, Vexoran said. I and half of my fleet surrender ourselves to humanity's protection. We request asylum and offer our full cooperation in whatever plans you have for the galaxy. Chen's smile was warm and genuine. Welcome to the Resistance, High Commander. I am no longer a High Commander. I am no longer anything. I am just a soldier who has laid down his weapons. Then we will find you new weapons. Weapons of diplomacy and cooperation and peace. They are harder to use than guns and missiles, but they build rather than destroy. I do not know how to use such weapons. Then we will teach you. That is what allies do. The word felt strange in Vexoran's ears. Allies. He had never had allies before. Only masters to obey and enemies to crush. The idea of equals working together toward a common goal was alien to everything he had ever known. But it was also, he realized, exactly what he wanted. 20 minutes remained. The departing half of the Zelthri fleet was accelerating toward the edge of the solar system. The remaining half was powering down their weapons and broadcasting surrender signals. On Earth, the celebration was beginning. Billions of people who had spent 24 hours waiting for destruction suddenly found themselves facing something unexpected. Peace. The memes continued, but now they were different. Instead of mocking the aliens, they were welcoming them. Someone had already created a dancing video of Vexoran with a peace sign. It had been viewed 100 million times in the last 10 minutes. Your people are very strange. Vexoran observed. We are, Chen agreed. But we are also very good at making friends. Give us time. You will see. 10 minutes remained. On the Eternal Dominion, now renamed New Horizon by popular vote among its crew, Vexoran stood beside Ambassador Chen and watched Earth rise below them. The blue and green world that he had come to conquer had conquered him instead. But it was a different kind of conquest, a conquest without weapons or threats or fear. What happens now? He asked. Now we begin the real work. We have allies on 400 worlds who are ready to rise up against the hegemony. We have intelligence about every military installation in your empire. And we have you, someone who knows how the hegemony thinks and how to defeat them. You want me to help you destroy my own people? No, Chen said firmly. We want to help you free them. There's a difference. Vexoran thought about that. Free them. He had never considered that the hegemony itself might be enslaved. Enslaved to tradition, to fear, to a system that demanded endless conquest and punished any sign of weakness. But looking at it now, with human eyes, he could see the chains that bound his people as clearly as the chains they placed on others. It will not be easy, he said. The hegemony will fight. They will never accept what you are offering. We know. But we are patient. We have been preparing for 50 years. We can prepare for 50 more if needed. The important thing is that we begin. That we show the galaxy that there is another way. That we give people hope. 5 minutes remained. Across former hegemony space, something was changing. The 100 ships returning from Earth carried a message that could not be contained. Vexoran has surrendered. The humans are too strong. There's another way. Whispers spread through conquered worlds. Hope flickered in the hearts of beings who had known only despair. Resistance leaders who had been hiding for years suddenly had proof that the hegemony could be challenged, and on Earth, a simple transmission began broadcasting across the galaxy. It was not a threat or a demand. It was an invitation. We are humanity. We do not conquer. We do not enslave. We invite. If you seek freedom,